Here's something super interesting. I've been reading this guy named Gerardo Marti. You all may know him. He's a sociologist at Davidson University. And so he wrote a whole book or dissertation on multi-ethnic worship in multi-ethnic churches. And I want us to deal with this for a second because he found some pretty dope observations that I want to deal with. Mm-hmm. So here was one of his main conclusions out of this book. So y'all check him out. Gerardo Marti. Check him out. Here's what he concluded in his book. I forgot the name of his book. I'll put it down there somewhere. He said, the racial diversity of the worship leadership is a greater determining factor of the racial diversity of a congregation than the music style. Mm. So the diversity of the worship leadership is a greater determining factor of racial diversity in the church other than above music. Mm-hmm. And he says it doesn't matter the quality or the style. A racially diverse worship team serves as an icon of hospitality, diversity, identifying the desire and effort on the part of the congregation to attract a racially diverse congregation. All right? Further, he says, I'll read this last line. Further, the racial diversity established in the congregation is primarily relational. Relationships forged across racial lines by working together in the music ministry become a catalyst for a network of cross-racial relationships. I thought that was a dope conclusion. I'm gonna tell you why.
That's good.
The reason why I really like what he wrote in this book is because for the last 20 years of me being in some sort of music ministry or church, one of the key objectives to a church wanting to be multi-ethnic was changing the music. And it's hilarious because it really never works.
Right.
It never worked. Or at least for me, in my context, it never worked. Mm-hmm. So I was hired by a church that was all white, and they said, man, we want to be multi-ethnic, and you understand both sides of the coin, so you can sing, United Pursuit, but you also can sing Fred Hammond. So if we bring that diversity out of you, then we're gonna diversify this church. And what happened was it turned the church black because they did let me express myself the way I did. And when I sang a song by Chris Tomlin, it didn't sound like Chris Tomlin. As a matter of fact, the congregation didn't know who it was. They thought I wrote it. Right?
Right.
And so the church turned black because the worship team was black. And now when I leave, all the black people leave because they came for that kind of style and it didn't diversify the congregation. What Marti is saying is it's the relationships and the leadership represented. Now, not tokenism, not putting up a Hispanic, a black, a white, not that. It's the relational component. Right. It's the proximity of said worship leaders that then makes the congregation more diverse. Not the music style or even the quality.
And that makes total sense because what it comes down to is who's at the table making decisions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When a worship team and when pastors are diverse, there's diversity at the table for different ideas and different suggestions for song. I was at a church, stage full, all white church, stage full of black people, but we had no say in anything. We were singers. We sang what they told us to. But when you flip that around and make leaders and bring people to the table who have diverse perspectives, that's how you diversify. You know what I'm saying? Diversity is not a white church having a stage full of black people. It's leadership and who is speaking into what's happening in the church and helping make decisions. That's how you bring diversity.
Yeah, that's good. And in other words, also what you're saying, what I think you're saying is who has power at the table to bring real change, right? Not who's represented necessarily,
right.
but who's at the table who has some sort of power attributed to their voice in all races to really formulate a true multi-ethnic racial, a multiracial experience. Because some people may say, we ain't doing that. Like for me, in some spaces, it's like we're not singing that song by Kirk Franklin because Lil Pete he can barely play G, C, and D. So I'm not going to do that. We're not doing that. We don't have the muscle to experience that kind of music right now. However, there's some other ways that we can bring diversity to the table. But this guy Marty really speaks to what I subscribe to, which is proximity, unity through proximity and place. And when he says relational unity, and he has a term for it, I think he actually calls it, let me tell you what he calls it. He actually calls it racialized ritual inclusion. So the inclusive nature of all of all races, in collaboration, in relationship with each other. Now, I'll be honest, in the same spaces as a black worship leader, if I've had situations where I've had a white pastor and we have no relationship. And to me, as a worship pastor, a black worship pastor with a white pastor, how in the world are we going to foster diversity if there's no relationship on that level?
Right.
Let alone, how are we going to foster any kind of cohesive, multi-ethnic, communal worship experience if the worship team is not relational and diverse at the same time? Right. You see what I'm saying? And so I agree with what he's saying. Now, what I don't agree with what he's saying is, what he found, and he studied over God knows how many churches, but he said that the music doesn't diversify the church. The quality or the style is the relationship. Give me some quality. I don't want no church with bad quality of music. I'm sorry, church. I know y'all doing the best you can. I know all you got is Lil Petey to play the piano. But listen to me. I don't want to be in no church that's got bad quality music. I do respect, though, that when churches are trying to have diverse expressions of worship, that they do the best they can with what they have. And I think most churches can accomplish that to some degree. Yeah.